You stopped defending yourself. You stopped explaining. You stopped crying, stopped yelling, stopped giving them anything at all. And something strange happened. They got worse, way worse. Suddenly they were love-bombing you like the first week you met, then switching to cruel accusations you had never heard before, then showing up unannounced, then telling everyone you know that you are the abuser. And part of you wondered if maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you should have just kept engaging. At least that was predictable. Here is what nobody tells you. What you are witnessing is not a relationship problem. It is a psychological collapse. And it is the most important sign that what you are doing is actually working. Welcome to Predator Psychology, where we decode the minds that manipulate and arm the minds that heal. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what happens inside the narcissist's mind when you stop reacting. Not the surface behaviors, but the neurological and psychological mechanisms driving their escalation. More importantly, I'm going to show you why their desperation is proof of your power, not theirs. And I am going to give you the framework to survive the storm until it passes. Let us start with the foundation. Why do your reactions matter so much to them in the first place? Narcissistic supply. That is the clinical term for what narcissists extract from every interaction. Psychoanalyst Otto Fenichel first described this concept back in 1938. It refers to the attention, admiration, and emotional reactions that narcissists need to function. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, one of the leading clinical experts on narcissistic abuse, describes it like a massive warehouse with trucks going in full and coming out empty. Everyone around the narcissist feels like those trucks, depleted after every single interaction. Here's the part most people miss. Both positive and negative reactions provide supply. Your praise feeds them. Your anger feeds them. Your tears feed them. Your frustration feeds them. Sam Vaknin, author of Malignant Self-Love, explains that narcissistic supply includes all forms of attention: fame and notoriety, adulation and fear, applause and disapproval. Even arguing with them provides supply because it proves their ability to control your emotional state. Why does negative supply work just as well as positive? Because it confirms their significance. Your anger proves they matter enough to disturb you. Your tears validate their power over you. Your frustration shows they can get under your skin whenever they choose. This is why the only reaction that truly starves them is no reaction at all. Now let us go deeper. What is actually happening psychologically when you cut off their supply? To understand the collapse, you need to understand what you are collapsing. Unlike emotionally healthy people whose sense of self comes from within, the narcissist's entire identity is externalized. They literally need external input to know who they are. Their self-esteem, their reality testing, their sense of boundaries, all of it depends on what they extract from others. Psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott identified something called the true self versus false self dynamic. In narcissists, the false self is a defensive mask constructed in childhood to protect against early trauma, rejection, or inconsistent caregiving. This mask replaced their authentic identity, and it requires constant external validation to remain intact. When that validation stops, the mask begins to crack. And what lies beneath is the damaged, shame-filled true self that the narcissist has spent their entire life hiding from. Dr. Eleanor Greenberg describes what narcissists need to maintain their facade as the GOD defense. Grandiosity, the belief that they are special. Omnipotence, the belief that they can do anything. And devaluing, the belief that everyone else is worthless. When you stop reacting, this entire defensive structure starts to fail. Research published in Frontiers in Psychiatry confirms that narcissistic defenses develop as a consequence of early experiences of rejection and devaluation by primary caregivers. These defenses serve as an unconscious process to protect against severe anxieties, shame, and threats to self-esteem. When you remove the supply, you remove the protection, and they are left face to face with the emptiness they have been running from their whole lives. The clinical term for what follows is narcissistic collapse. During collapse, narcissists experience depression, persistent sadness, and something called anhedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure. They may develop paranoia and persecution fantasies. In extreme cases, brief psychotic episodes. Their sleep patterns become disordered. Eating patterns change. They experience violent mood swings, especially explosive rage. Many turn to substitute addictions: alcohol, drugs, gambling, reckless behavior, anything to fill the void you left behind. Vaknin describes this as the narcissist crumbling like zombies or vampires, with withdrawal symptoms similar to drug withdrawal, delusions, physiological effects, irritability, emotional instability. They quite literally do not know who they are anymore. So what does this collapse look like in their behavior toward you? It follows a remarkably consistent pattern. Almost every narcissist goes through the same stages when their supply is cut off. Stage 1 is confusion and denial. They cannot believe their usual tactics are failing. They may interpret your silence as temporary and keep testing whether the old manipulations still work. Stage 2 is escalation and hoovering. Hoovering is named after the vacuum cleaner because these tactics are designed to suck you back in. Suddenly they are love bombing you again, making grand promises to change, manufacturing emergencies, guilt tripping, showing up where you will be, mentioning new relationships to make you jealous. Dr. Susan Albers from Cleveland Clinic explains that hoovering is a way of reasserting power and control and perpetuating the cycle of abuse. Stage 3 is narcissistic rage. When escalation fails, the anger comes. Explosive verbal attacks, harsh accusations, or the opposite, cold, silent treatment designed to punish you. Researcher Heinz Kohut established that narcissistic rage is intrinsically linked to narcissistic injury. They are two sides of the same coin. Stage 4 is vindictive behavior, smear campaigns to destroy your reputation, character assassination, turning mutual friends into what are called flying monkeys, people manipulated to do the narcissist's bidding without realizing it. In severe cases, stalking or harassment. Stage 5 is discard or departure. Either they abandon you for new supply, or if no alternatives exist, they experience complete psychological breakdown. You might recognize this pattern playing out right now. Maybe you finally stopped responding to their texts, and suddenly they showed up at your job with flowers. Maybe you stopped defending yourself during arguments and they started spreading lies about you to your family. Maybe you went gray rock, giving only boring one-word answers, and they accused you of being cold, of not caring, of being the real narcissist. Here's the critical concept you need to understand: the extinction burst. This is a well-documented phenomenon from behavioral psychology. When a behavior that was previously reinforced suddenly stops being reinforced, the behavior often temporarily increases in intensity before it decreases. The narcissist's tactics get worse before they get better. Louder yelling, crueler insults, rapid switching between sweet talk and guilt trips. More extreme love bombing followed by more vicious devaluation. This is exactly what Dr. Ramani describes when she says narcissists become argumentative, combative, and demeaning when you start gray rocking. The extinction burst can last days to weeks, and it requires significant resolve to endure. But here is what behavioral science confirms. If reinforcement is consistently withheld, the behavior eventually decreases. The narcissist may give up, seek supply elsewhere, or cycle back through weaker hoovering attempts, but the pattern of diminishing intensity holds. The most important thing to understand is this: if you respond even once during the extinction burst, you teach them that they just have to push harder to crack you. One reaction during the worst of it resets everything. So how do you survive it? First, understand why non-reaction works at the deepest level. When you stop reacting, you stop giving them information. Every time you defend yourself, shut down, or get emotional, you reveal exactly how to manipulate you better next time. Silence gives them nothing to work with. Second, you break their control. Your emotional reaction is narcissistic supply. When you respond emotionally, you feed them. When you stay neutral, you starve them. Third, you protect your own mental state. Narcissists operate off emotions. Once your emotions are activated, logic becomes inaccessible. That is exactly what they want. By staying calm, you keep your thinking brain online. Fourth, you avoid what is called reactive abuse. This is the trap where narcissists deliberately provoke you so they can point to your reaction as evidence that you are the real problem. When you do not react, you deny them this weapon. Fifth, and most importantly, you reclaim power. By consciously controlling your responses, you take back the agency they stole from you. The gray rock method is the tactical application of these principles. You become emotionally non-responsive, boring, unremarkable, short, generic answers, minimal eye contact. No personal information volunteered. Calm, disinterested demeanor. The term comes from a 2012 blog post by a survivor using the pseudonym Skylar, who observed that psychopaths are addicted to drama and cannot stand to be bored. Dr. Ramani explains the mechanism. When you gray rock them, you stop being a robust source of narcissistic supply. It is almost like you were once a full well, and now you're not giving them validation at the level they want. One critical warning. Gray rock is a short-term protective strategy, not a permanent solution. It has never been formally studied in clinical trials. It should never be used in situations involving physical abuse or imminent danger. Some abusers escalate to violence when other tactics fail. Dr. Brianne Markley warns that gray rocking is not guaranteed to work on everyone. Just as playing dead does not always work with a predator, neither does gray rocking. Use it as protection while you plan more permanent steps. Establishing boundaries, reducing contact, getting professional support, building your exit strategy. Here is what I need you to understand most of all. What you are witnessing when a narcissist unravels is not proof of their power. It is proof of yours. Their escalation, their rage, their desperate manipulation, these are not signs that you made a mistake by withdrawing. They are signs that you finally stopped feeding the machine that was consuming you. The extinction burst is terrifying, but it is temporary. And on the other side of it is something they never wanted you to discover, that you can exist without them, that their chaos does not have to become your chaos, that their emptiness is not your responsibility to fill. They built their entire identity on controlling your emotions. When you take that control back, you do not just inconvenience them, you threaten the very foundation of who they believe themselves to be. That is why they fight so hard. And that is why your resolve matters so much. The pattern is the protection. Now you see it. If this shifted how you understand what happened to you, subscribe. There is more to unpack, and you deserve to understand all of it.